I'm on the call, Samad West Keys from Achieving the Dream. We have Deborah Bragg from Bragg and Associates, as well as John and Maggie Cosgrove. And so with that, I'll go ahead and give the floor to Deb, John, and Maggie.
Great, thanks, Samad. We're really excited about the opportunity to talk with you about the evaluation. And I'd like to just share a little bit of perspective before I introduce my teammates here, Maggie Cosgrove and John Cosgrove. We've been doing evaluation together for a number of years and really appreciate the partnership that evaluators can create with community colleges to do good work. And our perspective, I think you'll find, as we move forward in this evaluation, is to work collaborative with you and to do everything that we can do to contribute to the success of this grant. The grant does require an evaluator, and we take our job seriously, but we believe the best way for us to support the grant is to get to know what you do, understand what it is you're trying to achieve, to assist you with engaging in the evaluation in ways that are feasible and reasonable, but also understanding that the funder of a grant often has expectations too. And as evaluators, we sometimes sit in the middle of that space of trying to help everyone achieve their goals. So we're going to talk a little bit about our perspective today, and we want to get a little bit deeper into the data requirements for the grant, but understand that we're not going to go into really, really deep conversation because we believe that that really needs to happen through one-on-one conversations with your colleges and then a reassessment by our team of what we can do together in this grant and also what we can do to support you in gathering data that you want to gather that fits your goals. So I pause, I think, here to introduce again Maggie Cosgrove and John Cosgrove and just give them an opportunity to share a little bit about their perspective as well.
Hello everyone, this is Maggie Cosgrove, and of course Deb said it so well. We are excited to be part of this project. We're looking forward to learning along with you as you implement your retail pathway and watching how that progresses. We look forward to our work with you. John?
Hi, this is John Cosgrove, I think that concept of evaluators actually being a partner in the project is, kind of the best way to approach this. So I don't know that I've got anything more to add to kind of what my colleagues have already said.
Thanks, John and Maggie. So we're going to jump into this now. And as Samad said, we have a couple of polls, and we encourage you, as we're speaking, to enter any questions or comments in the chat box. If they're burning, we'll kind of count on Samad to let us know, and otherwise we'll probably address them at the end. We've tried to keep this set of slides to a relatively minimal number today. We want to step back and start with the evaluation questions. Our team has been working with the ATD leadership over the last several months to design an evaluation that fits ATD's needs, that we anticipate will fit your needs, but will also fit the Walmart Foundation's needs, the sponsor of this work. And we have 4 kind of big evaluation questions that guide the work. And the first is, how are these projects being implemented? So what is happening on the ground with the programs, with strategies that you're providing for your students, your partnerships with employers, any challenges that you face. We anticipate all of those things are going to happen, and we would like to be partners in documenting those developments and helping to tell the story of how implementation occurs. Your grants will all produce some outputs. There'll be new curriculum. There may be new advising materials. There undoubtedly will be new employer partnerships and maybe agreements. All of those outputs we will pull in and really document as part of the project what those are. In addition, this grant does require an impact evaluation that tracks students' education and employment outcomes. So we have designed, as you have seen, the file that is attached to this webinar includes that draft ATD participant file that we're going to talk about today. And that we see that as a starting point. It's not the final document. It's a starting point with our best understanding of what it is the grant needs to provide to the Walmart Foundation to demonstrate that this grant has been implemented as it was intended and to measure impact. Another important product of the evaluation that we want you to know about, because we'll be partners in this, is ATD is looking for documentation of this pathways concept. The retail pathways pilots serve as an initial kind of entry point for ATD in this whole career pathways and this guided pathways, this whole proliferation of pathways that we're seeing across the country. ATD is hoping, and I believe I'm speaking accurately, is really hoping that this provides some really needed information, helps to move forward a vision for how ATD is seeing itself in this pathway space. And we will be working in partnership with the ATD leadership and working with you to pull in your most promising developments to really illustrate what pathways mean in this ATD context. So we're really excited about that. That was one of the primary reasons we signed on to the project. This evaluation is a mixed method design, and by that we will be conducting implementation evaluation that's primarily qualitative data. A lot of that data we will collect when we're on site doing interviews and observations of what's going on in your colleges and with your partner organizations. We'll also be reviewing the documentation and the reporting requirements and just kind of paying attention to the evolution with qualitative data. We also will be doing an impact evaluation, and that's the quantitative data we're talking about today. That's the student level record analysis that we will need to do to satisfy the impact evaluation requirement. And I must say, not just to satisfy a requirement, but to tell us if these programs are working. I mean, that's a really, really important goal, I think, that we all share. I'm going to ask Maggie Cosgrove to share a little bit about developmental evaluation, which is a perspective that our team has adopted and really values as part of an evaluation process. So Maggie, if you'd share that,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Sure, I'd love to. So just as Deb said, over the years that we've been working together, we've come to appreciate that when we're part of a complex project like this Pathways Initiative is, developmental evaluation is a good fit. Because just as your projects are going to evolve along the way, so is our evaluation going to evolve along the way. Because as you practitioners are adapting and learning about what works as you go along, we're going to pay close attention to the implementation and the outcome as your project evolves. So we have to learn about what your adaptations are, why you decided to make them, and what the effect of those is. And this process, we're pretty sure, is going to fit very well with Walmart's goal of developing a framework for retail pathways to find out what makes the framework works, and as well as your goals to improve your retail pathways at your particular colleges. So we see this as a good fit.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. That was great. So we're going to do our first poll, and that poll asks you to share with us what your highest priority goal is for this grant. That's a really important thing for an evaluation team to know. So, Samad, I'm going to let you conduct the poll.
All right. Bear with me as I do this for the first time.
Great. So we'll just pause, let you take a look at the options, and see what we get.
Okay, right now we have about a 45% response rate. 55, we're doing better.
And some of us are probably not eligible to respond.
Correct. Okay, 64. All right, we went up to 73.
All right.
Okay, I guess we're stopping at 73.
Great.
All right. Now, you'd be surprised that it was actually 25% for each of the different categories.
Oh, interesting. Well, as my friend and teammate Maggie Cosgrove said when we were planning this, if we find differences in the primary goal, it reinforces how important it is to have that dialogue one-on-one with your colleges and really understand where it is you want to take this grant. Mm-hmm. And we really hope to do that. Any comments, John and Maggie?
No, but I do think that it's great that there was variance in purpose. And, so I select, or, I do suspect like some overlap there in purpose, because it was a forced choice item, but it does indicate that the colleges have a little bit of a different lens on this, and so it isn't going to be kind of a one size is best for everyone.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, we're gonna move on. Thank you for doing that. We have another poll a little later in this webinar, and that was really helpful to us. We're going to focus now the rest of our conversation on this impact evaluation and dive just a little bit into the file, the ATD participant file that we sent you. But first, let us just reinforce the purpose of this impact evaluation and what we'll be doing. The first element will be just to document the student participation. Like, how many students participate in your programs and your strategies? And who are those students? And does participation of different student groups vary by strategies or types of programs or types of credentials? All of those things are really important to document. From there, we'll extend our work into trying to understand what happens to the students. So what outcomes do they achieve as part of their educational experience, and what are the employment outcomes for the students who have been part of these programs? Again, we'll want to know who are those students, and do those outcomes vary by different student groups? We're very attentive to issues that may suggest we have inequities in different student groups, and I know that's at the heart of ATD's work, to be very conscious of equity issues as we are as evaluators. And then we intend to roll all of this information into the development of the framework that we talked with you about earlier. 3 buckets of data. Maggie, you want to?
Sure. So we think about those questions that Deb had up on the last slide. There isn't any one data source at any of your college that can answer all those questions. So when we think about the data, we think about it falling into these 3 buckets that are on this slide here. The yellow bucket represents the data we get from students as they enter the program. So we're going to capture this data at intake, and we'll only need to collect that data one time. So the yellow bucket is a one-time deal. The blue bucket is the information that of what happens to students when they're in the program, about academic performance and the way the strategies like wraparound services touch those students. And this data we'll need to update on a term-by-term basis to watch students progress through their programs and through their pathways. And then the green bucket represents the academic outcomes and the employment outcomes. So what happens to students post-program? And then those wavy lines, those are high-tech lines, and they demonstrate the integration of those multiple data sources that are in those buckets into one file. And the big blue barrel represents the collection of all that data into unit record student files, so that we can answer those questions about what happened to students that Deb had up on the previous slide.
Great. So we're going to delve into those buckets just a little bit because it's important for us to think about what that data collection looks like. We're not going to go into great detail, and again, I want to reinforce we will have one-on-one conversations with y'all about these data and your experience with doing this kind of work, and really to help us all get our feet on the ground about what's possible here. The first category are those data that we'll only collect once, and those are attribute variables, demographics, pre-program experiences. So for example, have students already participated in other college experiences, in developmental education, previous certificates like these. So what do they come in with? We also need to know what their pre-employment experience is. So have they had jobs in the retail industry? Do they currently hold a job in the retail industry? So, you know, that looks very different than a student who's just beginning their college experience and has no employment experience. We'll in this initial file, we'll capture, you know, what's the initial enrollment of the student in the program and in college. So are they in this very first initial enrollment? Are they a full-time student? Are they starting part-time? So there's a set of variables there, and that's probably enough detail there. I'll let Maggie then talk about the next bucket.
The blue bucket. So the blue bucket, this is what happens to students while they're in the program, while they're in your retail pathway. So of course we need in this bucket, we need some identification of the student in order to keep track of them along the way. We need to know what programs they're enrolled in, what they attempt, what they earn in terms of credit hours, in terms of course grades. and how do they engage with the student along the way, with the college along the way. So that's what strategy participation means, and that will be custom. There'll be certain variables in there that will be dependent upon the implementation plan that we get from you this Friday that will sort of define what those are. And then the developmental education variable is for the students that are co-enrolled in DevEd, because DevEd is integral to the pathway, so in cases where that's a co-enrolled situation, we'll need variables on that. And then there'll be other variables that will be determined also based upon the college's implementation plans. But these are the basic variables that will be updated on a term-by-term basis as the college is interacting with their program and with the other strategies that the college has wrapping around the program for the student. Now the green bucket is what did the student attain? So once again, we'll need to have some sort of, in this bucket, we'll have to have some ID, because remember, we're forming a one record for each student. So in each bucket, we have to be able to identify the student in this. So this bucket represents the outcomes. What did the student achieve? Did they get credit? Did they complete a program? Did they get credentials or certificates? Did they get employed? Did they get employed where? And a couple other variables that really tie in with Walmart's goals and their metrics that they want for the grant are the satisfaction and confidence in future career, wages, and then the colleges are also expressed interest on return on investment. So that's what we see as the green bucket.
Great.
Then this figure is meant to show that pathways are different, and students will experience the pathways in different ways. So some of your pathways really consist of one program, and others are more complex with multiple programs and credentials along the way. So this figure is just meant to show that there are multiple entry points and multiple exit points in the pathway. And along the way, there are these potential outcomes for students at each program in the pathway. So if you look under student enrolls in program 1, there are potential outcomes. And for each of those potential outcomes, it's a data point, and we need to collect information on what happens to a student at each of these possible outcomes as they get there within each of the programs along the pathway. And then all that experience, that academic experience of the student within the program is sort of enveloped by the light blue circle, which is meant to represent the wraparound services and the strategies that your college has designed in their programs. So if you think about this, this is a complex set of moving parts, and it's the basis of the reason that Deb, John, and I said, boy, developmental evaluation is to go with this project, because see a lot of complexity.
Thanks, Maggie. We're excited about seeing your implementation plans. We've been able to pull out a little bit, I think, of understanding from your proposals. We know some of you are focusing primarily on one program and one credential and pulling that into a pathway. And so we anticipate most of the focus will be on possibly only a single program and credential. But some of you have multiple programs and credentials that it looks like there's going to be activity around thinking about that alignment and sequencing in some different ways. And so we really, this graphic really is intended just to signal to you that when you examine and evaluate pathways, there are multiple programs and multiple credentials. And so we'll be thinking with you about what that means. And as Maggie indicated, that's another reason for developmental evaluation, or this perspective that, we don't know, we certainly don't have all the answers, but we know we'll learn, and we'll learn from you, and hopefully our learning will assist you as well. That's our goal. we have another poll. So Samad, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and launch this particular poll. And essentially, we're asking in which of the following areas will your college need support to implement the evaluation? And you can select all that applies. So I'll give you all a minute and a half to respond. I wish I could play some theme music with this.
What would you choose, Samad?
The trusty and reliable Jeopardy song seems to fit.
Good.
Okay, 20 seconds left. Five seconds. All right, the poll is now closed, and I will share the results with you all.
Aha. Good to know. So based on your evaluation surveys, which were extremely helpful to us, we anticipated the employment data piece would be a real important piece for us to focus on when we're working with you. It's also good to know that we need to be really clear and really support you in just making sure we're working with secure data files and transmitting the data. So that's great, and glad to know that if this other is, I mean, I guess the last response, if it's no concern, that's great, but if it's an other, maybe you can type that into the chat box so we know maybe what the other concern is. John and Maggie, you have any thoughts on the poll?
I would say that I agree with you. I'm certainly not surprised by the collecting and sharing employment data. That was pretty evident in the research, and I'm actually happy that you're concerned about transmitting secure data files. That's good. We're concerned about that too. We want that to be as secure as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
I hope that the other means no concern, but I'm interested to see what those are in case they aren't. And I also believe that there's reason to be concerned about the other. I mean, this is a lot of complex data, but we'll come up with a plan to make it doable.
Yeah, I would, and just to, I guess, reinforce here, these are not surprise concerns. I mean, these are common kinds of concerns that have come up in other evaluation projects, and like we stand prepared to actually assist you guys with this.
So Stephanie Etter added, she responded other, and she is concerned about the data related to the return on investment included in the green bucket.
So I think, Samad, you should respond to that.
Wow, okay, sure. So as it relates to the return on investment, this is something that we're looking for institutions to help us define as well. And so this is something that's still evolving, and talking to the Walmart Foundation as well as the Hope Street Group who is helping us in terms of, I guess, making sure that we meet all the data points that that is being requested of us by the Walmart Foundation. What they're really looking for is for institutions to kind of help define how they define or operationalize return on investment. So how do you figure you're getting the most bang for your buck as it relates to the program? And so we're interested in learning how you all are defining that. But I think in having conversations with you, us, ATD, as well as the evaluation team, we're hoping to put together a more cohesive definition of what return on investment means for as it relates to the Retail Pathway Initiative.
Perfect, great. I think that is really helpful. I will say that John, Maggie, and I have some experience applying some really basic return on investment approaches in some of the work we've done evaluating some of the TAC grants. And so we'll be happy to share with you some of what we've thought about, and we've talked with some of our other colleagues about, but it's certainly an area where I think we all have, more to learn than really sort of a standard approach that everybody has adopted. That really isn't the case. And it's good to hear, Samad, that I think that the Walmart Foundation and the Hope Street Group are understanding, this is really an area where we'll all be learning and just having a conversation about how to do this. So we're going to proceed and just share our next steps. So your implementation plans are due in a couple days, and we will do our homework and really read through those and understand what it is you're trying to achieve. We will then reflect that information back on the implementation evaluation and the impact evaluation and see if that changes any of our thinking, and then integrate that information into setting up one-on-one calls with you to review in more detail excuse me, the participant record file that we shared with you, and then to also talk about our site visits and talk with you about what that agenda will look like. As you all know, we will be visiting your colleges beginning about 6 weeks from now and then extending into early in October. And at that point, we also see that we will continue to talk with you about the evaluation design, what some of your goals are. So this is not just a one-time conversation. It is an evolving conversation so that we understand, as you do, really what the value of evaluation can be in this project. I'm going to ask Maggie to share then with you a little bit about the work we've been doing with an intake form. So I'm going to pull out of my PowerPoint and pull up another screen.
Okay, so I would like to draw your attention to the very first top line of this slide where it's sample application. And I would like to reiterate, sample. This is an example of an intake form tied to a TAC grant that we're evaluating. And this particular, we know you're all familiar with TAC grants at your colleges. This TAC grant, as many TAC grants did, required colleges to collect information on students. And this information was over and above what was in the college's student information system. This type of form, this intake form that you see on your screen here, has helped the colleges bridge that data collection gap between what the grant required and what is currently residing in the student information system. So the form supplements the data collection system that you currently have at your individual colleges. And the reason that we have this up is we see a great similarity in the very sense that this Retail Pathways grant also requires information at various points along a student's progression through the pathway that your student information system probably doesn't collect, and from your evaluation surveys that you sent back to us definitely doesn't collect at every one of your institutions. So this is the way to bridge the gap at the front end, at the intake part, when students enter the program. So once again, let me say, remember, this is a sample intake form taken from another project. But if you look at the data elements in this intake form, you'll see that some are very similar to the Retail Pathways program and to the data template that Deb sent out last week, and others aren't applicable to this grant. For example, I don't think you need to know whether or not someone's a TAA recipient. But one of the things you would need to know is employment status at the beginning of the grant. And so you can see that some of the items on this form have a drop-down menu next to them, and those items, there's a menu that pops up with the attributes that would come from the data template that was sent out last week. So for example, there's a text box in there for item number 15 for the currently employed that gives the attributes for that variable. So the way this works out is that the access, this intake form feeds into an access database. So a staff member from your college who does the intake with a student would complete the PDF enrollment, and then that would populate an access database for all the variables that are on the form. And remember, once again, this is a sample. The actual form for the Retail Pathways is in the process of being built based upon the data template, and we will get to you as quickly as possible because our goal is to make this as painless as possible for the colleges. So if I left anything out, Deb or John, that you would like to add to that?
No, yeah, just reinforcing this is really just part of the intake process, so we wouldn't use this again, you know, if they progress through a pathway. I
Right.
don't think that.
The one-time shot. That's great point.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that we're thinking is there would certainly be standardized items that fit everybody's needs, but there might also be some questions that you have that are really just relevant to your grant, and we could customize this so that you could find out, you know, something really important for everyone to know about who the students are or what their goals are or whatever. Most of it would be standard, but there could be some customized items.
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Maggie. That's very helpful. I think it's just important, you know, for us to share that we do realize we're all pressed for time. We've been racing as fast as we can to support this grant, and it's our intention to, you know, share as you're as up to date as we are on where all of this is, and we hope to get you, you know, a draft of this intake form just as quickly as we can. We know that your programs are starting soon, and if we could have done it sooner, we would have, but we're running as fast as we can to keep up with you guys. This is just information on our evaluation team. Certainly feel free to reach out to any of us. John and Maggie will be taking the lead on working with the 2 colleges in Florida, and I will be taking the lead on working with Umpqua and Durham Tech. So that's kind of how we're thinking about the workload, but we will always be coordinating and collaborating, and often even the one-on-one calls. I think we'd all like to be a part of those and maintain some communication all along the way with everyone. So that's kind of how we see that unfolding. So with that, Samad, I think, you know, any questions we'd be happy to answer.
Okay, just so you all know, in the handout section of the on the control panel on the side, there is a handout which includes the draft of the ATD participant file that was sent out late last week. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all know that you can go there and download it from there as well if you weren't able to download it through the the email that was sent out at the end of last week. Thus far, we have a question, and it was asked a little earlier, but it was asking, does all colleges and programs require core courses for students to participate in a certificate or grant? And that was with Stephen Gross. Do all colleges in the program require core? I am going to, Meredith Hatch, who is usually on these calls, she's not here, but I'm going to consult with her because she was heavily involved in the, I guess, in the nascent stages of developing this grant. But I will be able to get back to you, Stephen, with a more, I guess, in-depth answer as it relates to your question. But I wanted to make sure that I let you know that I did get it.
Samad, it might be worth using this as an opportunity, just to talk for a few minutes. It may be very clear to everyone that decisions about designing the curriculum or the requirements for students are really should emerge from the colleges and through their understanding with you and the ATD team about what it is that comprises a pathway. As your evaluators, we will try to steer clear of sort of telling you how to do it. We want to understand what it is you want to achieve and support you in achieving that goal, but unless we learn that there's some major disconnect in what you're doing from what was intended, we won't get in your way. I mean, we'll support, if this is through your implementation plan, everybody agrees this is a good plan, then that's the roadmap we'll use. And we won't get involved in curriculum design decisions except to document them and understand how is it going when you're trying to implement your plan.
Yeah, I would definitely second that, Donna, in saying that's really our role in turn. Our role is not really to help or to, I guess, manage what you all are doing, but rather figuring out what you all are doing and looking at avenues for improvement as well, but not necessarily to direct everything that you all have going on. I mean, we see the practices that you all have going on, and that's why you were selected to participate in this particular initiative, but it's not our aim or anyone's aim to kind of shape or, I guess direct you in another direction, for a lack of a better, I hate using the same word over and over again, but to put you in a different direction other than what you had initially intended for. However, if we see ways for improvement through evaluations and whatnot, then that's really our aim and our goal. In doing this, not necessarily to reshape what it is that you already have going on completely.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Are there any other questions? Trudy, I see your question. However, I need some more context. So I can take you off mute if you like, and you can ask it there. Trudy? Okay. Are there any other questions? Actually, what I will do at this point, if there is anyone who has a question, you can either raise your hand or you can go ahead and type it into the question box, but I'll also just take everyone off of mute as well.
Because that's how we advertise.
Okay, let's see.
You want to advertise that way.
Please send the PowerPoints to us at your convenience. Yes, Stephen, the aim is to go ahead and send the PowerPoints to everyone. And the PowerPoints are also recorded, so what we will do is just send you all a briefing of everything that was discussed, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint and a link to the YouTube for the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trudy, for letting me know your mic isn't working.
Hurry up and get that question in.
So let's see, another question. Donna, Dare, and I will be able to help colleges with program content as well. So Trudy wanted to make sure that that was known. And so yes, those are the questions that we have thus far. If there aren't any other questions, I know that everyone is busy, but I just wanted to make sure I allowed enough time for question and answering. Okay, just to reiterate, Trudy Burrs, who's on the call as well. She just wanted to make the point that her and Donna Dare, who will also be helping, who are also on the team here, will be able to help colleges with program content as well. Okay, well, in the meantime, if there aren't any other questions right now, you please feel free to send the questions to me, and I will try my best to answer them. I want to go ahead and thank everyone for taking the time to participate in this webinar. And I want to also like to thank Deborah, John, and Maggie for their time as well and helping us put this together. And yes, everyone have a great rest of the day.